Strong ones?
Yes, one.
You guys want some more over here? Not that much focus. We'll get started. We won't be terribly formal about any of this. So feel free as we go along and we cover some of this information. Feel free to just throw your hand up, squall out real loud or something, make some kind of noise. I guess first of all, I know most of you, and I've met a few of you as you came in. My name's Corey Craig, and I've been coaching for several years now, different levels. I do a lot of off-season workouts with kids of all ages, including 2 or 3 college players. So I've been doing this quite a while. Last year, our 2020-16 team, we played with Hoop Dreams, and had a good experience there. But got an opportunity to get a little bit of a taste of kind of what AAU basketball is all about on sort of a small scale. So a few years ago, Chris Reeser and I, hope you know Chris, for anybody that doesn't know you. Chris is from Berea, and we started Southern Kentucky Select. And it was mostly just local regional travel teams, and then we continued to play under that the last few years, and we've done that all the way up through this past season. And then most of you know Travis Rogers over here. He started the 6th grade team. Well, now we'll be the 7th grade team, the 2025 team last year. And so they had quite a bit of success this past season. And and then Roy Rawlings here helps with me with the 2016. And so the 4 of us got to talking a few weeks ago, and we decided that maybe it would be worth talking about kind of pooling some efforts, seeing if there was interest in all of us, playing on similar circuits together this coming season after school ball's over. So since that conversation, we just started gathering some information and kind of pulling some things together. And what you have in your hands is sort of a summary of some of the things that we've kind of put together to this point. I guess first of all, just thinking about big picture, basketball is a great sport. It's a sport that has meant a lot to me in my life. It changed me as a young person, and it's something that's been a big part of my entire life and still is today. But the most important thing about basketball is not basketball itself, but it's about the opportunity to teach life lessons through the game of basketball. And so everything I do, both in the workouts that I do, the coaching that I do, and anytime I'm around the kids, it's always about trying to tie it back to life. And I know that Chris and Travis and Roy feel the same way, because we've had a lot of conversations about this, about how basketball and life mirror each other oftentimes, and how it's a wonderful opportunity to learn life lessons without real world consequences. So I feel like the 4 of us have a pretty good grounded perspective on this. You can get out there on social media and see some pretty warped folks about all of this, and I want you to know, at least as we stand here today, the 4 of us are not any of those people. And let's hope that we don't ever become like any of those people. But as we begin to talk about what we can do together, one of the things about playing on an AAU circuit is that it's expensive. But the more teams you have playing under the same name or the same program, the cheaper it gets. So by the 3 of us, the 3 teams that we have represented here this evening, playing sort of a similar schedule, there's an opportunity to do it for a little cheaper price. And we'll go over all the money and things like that in a little bit, but that's one of the motivations, is sort of economies of scale. And that would hold true as well for ordering uniforms and things of that nature. And we'll get to that in a little bit. As far as the 3 teams go, really putting the organizational stuff together, which is mostly what we're going to talk about tonight, that's sort of the extent of the three teams doing things together. Each team will still have its own autonomy and will function and work independent of one another, you know, because everybody's got different schedules. And so the 2025 team, you all will set your own practices and where and wins, and same with 27, and same with 26. Now, certainly if it's convenient and it makes sense to practice together, sir, we can do that, but that won't be something that we'll be setting out to try to do. As far as, you know, what we're going to propose here tonight, or what we're going to be talking about tonight, we're really talking about an AAU schedule versus what maybe many of us had done previously, more of just a local travel schedule. And I say that meaning that when you get out and you go to other states, and say you go to Greensboro, North Carolina, that was our first experience. That was the first weekend we played last April, and we got down there and there were teams from 8 or 10 different states, and so you learn a lot really quick, and it's different than playing just teams from, say, other counties in Kentucky. Different in that you got different, you know, backgrounds and cultures and different ways of doing things that I would imagine all of us would find a little bit different at times, because we all, you know, are Kentuckians and grew up here in Kentucky, and we kind of think a different way maybe than someone from Orlando or from, I don't know. Yeah, Georgia, Atlanta. Yeah, that's a good example. So it's a bit of an eye-opener at first. But what you learn is that at the end of the day, it's about being competitive. And it's not even as so much about, you got to have talent, but you got to have more than talent. You got to have a willingness to compete no matter who you're going up against. If it's somebody bigger, faster, stronger, or somebody that you think is inferior than you and you should be able to handle without any problem, you've got to compete. Because there's nothing worse than driving 8 hours, spending a lot of money on hotels, and a lot of money on food, and then you go out and somebody beats you by 35 points, and you just lay down and let them do it. That's a pretty sickening feeling for everybody. So when we talk about the difference between AAU and travel, on the competition side, the competition is a lot better across the board. Now, you will occasionally come across a team that's not real good. They're weak, but generally what you find is that team is somewhere near whatever the venue is that you're playing at, so they didn't have to travel too far. But generally when you're in Greensboro, North Carolina, and you're playing against a team from Orlando on a Friday night at 6 o'clock, they're going to be pretty good, because they weren't going to drive all that way on Friday and not be competitive. So from that perspective, that's a pretty major difference. The other big difference, you know, when we talk about the difference, what's the difference between local, regional travel ball and AAU, and this probably goes without saying, it's just the cost. It's the investment. And it's money investment and time investment. Because one of the things that we're going to talk about in a few minutes is about money and about that commitment. Typically, at least the way we've done most of our teams, everybody will buy their uniform, $100, $150, and then we just kind of pay as we go each weekend. Everybody chip in $20, $15, whatever it is. And that's kind of a week-to-week commitment. In order to participate in these circuits and in many of these larger AAU tournaments, there is a 3 to sometimes 6 month advance, like the Midwest circuit that we're going to talk about. You need to be signed up by December 31st to get the discount. Now they'll let you sign up after that, but you pay more, you don't get a discount, and you're subject to not get a spot because they only take the first, I think it's 20 teams or 24 teams in each age group. So that means that we as parents, we have to decide, okay, are we going to do this? If we say yes, and we commit, and we write the check, then we're committed. We got to do it. So that's obviously a major difference between just doing local, regional travel ball and playing AAU. And not only are you committing as a family, but you're committing to the other families within your team. Because again, you know, if there's 7 of us or 8 of us on a team, and we all commit that we're going to do this, and we go down our schedule and say, okay, this coming weekend we're supposed to be in Indianapolis, and 5 of us get there to Indianapolis, and 2 families no show, well, then that's hurting those other 5 families. hurting those other 5 kids. So it's important that as you think through this, that you're willing to be fully committed. Now, obviously things come up, sickness, death, work, just, all the stuff of life that comes up. But just generally speaking, if you're gonna do this, you need to be willing to be pretty committed to it for a span of several weeks here, or a couple months, 3 months. The Midwest Circuit, these circuits, we played last year in the National Youth Basketball League, the NYBL, and it was mostly in the southeast part of the country. And there were a lot of good teams, teams from Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Indiana, Michigan, Maine, New York. There were teams from all over the place in this circuit, and it was a lot of really good competition. And so the Midwest Circuit is very similar to that. There's a lot of different circuits out there, and really all the circuit amounts to is that it's an easier way to get a lot of games scheduled in advance. So it kind of makes scheduling a little easier because these dates and these venues are already locked in. You don't have to worry about is it going to make, is it not going to make. But the way it works is there'll be 4 weekends in this circuit. And we'll talk about this more in a minute. And you'll be guaranteed 4 games each weekend. It's not a tournament. It is a series that you're playing in, where you're earning points, and then it culminates at the end on the last weekend with the finals. Okay, and then a champion is crowned in each age group. And then everything you do the previous 3 weekends is what determines how you play, or where you're seated and who you play on that last weekend to start the tournament. So, but the eligibility is another very important thing because this is looked at, is at the bottom of this page. This is the eligibility for the Midwest Circuit. The NYBL is an example. Instead of it being May 31st, it was September 1st. So there is a little bit of difference depending on where you go to play, but the Midwest Circuit's actually a little bit more, it's better in terms of the eligibility dates they use than a lot of the tournaments we play in. The other thing, I guess, the other big difference is, if you live in Monticello and you're playing in Bowling Green, you're probably driving back and forth. If you live in Monticello and we're playing in Dearborn, Michigan, you're probably not going to be driving back and forth, which means we have to get hotel rooms. The way that works is, the way that would work with this group is that if we're all 3 in Indianapolis, generally whatever the tournament is, or if it's the circuit, there will be a list of hotels that they have that are tournament hotels or circuit hotels in a given city. They will assign, when we register, they'll say, okay, here's your 3 hotels. And then I will contact the hotels. And I'll say I need a block of 30 rooms. And they will send me a link. Then we'll just share that link. And all you do is get on your phone, hit the link, it'll pop up. It'll say Southern Kentucky Select, and have the dates. And it might be, $159 for a king bed, sofa pull-out. And then you can get 1 room, 2 rooms, whatever your needs are. It's very simple. That part of it is actually pretty easy to put together. And hopefully, if we're able to be as organized as we're trying to be, we will have the hotel information, accommodation information well in advance of each weekend, so that we're not, because a lot of times we weren't making reservations until the Tuesday or Wednesday before we were supposed to be there on Friday. And that got a little bit, everybody a little bit anxious. So our goal will be to try to have this well in advance and know what that is for as many weekends in advance as we can, as much time in advance. So the other thing I would say about that's a little different about some of this is a lot of these tournaments, because of the size of them, will start on Friday. Sometimes they'll take requests, sometimes they won't. I think there was only one time I actually made a request and I did not get it. And it was the time we had to be somewhere on Friday night. I forget where it was, not in Augusta. It was Augusta. And so there is a chance that, when that schedule comes out that week before, that it says, SKS 2027's got to be at, you know, in Dearborn, Michigan at 6:30 or 8:30 on a Friday night to play the first game. You know, so that's, again, that may mean having to take off work on Friday, all those things that kind of, the chain reaction that causes. So as you're thinking through this, and again, I'm not trying to scare anybody, I'm just trying to share what we've learned over the last, this past season, so that everybody can make good, sound, informed, conscientious decisions.
I want to mention, everybody knows each other, especially in our group. So if there's ever a situation where a Friday night game is an issue, you can send them to one of us. I don't think that'd be a problem.
Yeah, and we did that some. That was the case with our group too. I mean, and I'm sure you all are the same way. I'm sure you all trust each other enough that if you can't get off work early and you can't leave till 6 o'clock and they got to be there by 8:30, that, you know, players go on with a couple parents and everybody else comes on behind. So there's ways to work around those things, but I just want to make sure everybody understands that is a potential thing that could happen. Any questions down through number 2 there? All right. If not, then let's turn over. And of course, the eligibility rules at the bottom, I won't go over that much, but you can kind of look at that and make sure that your child meets that requirement. But the next page is kind of a front and back page, and this is just a code of conduct or expectations. And really, this is just sort of reducing to writing what I think everybody, if you were able to, if ever we ran around the room and you took a turn verbalizing what you expect of the coach, what you would think the coach would expect of you, what the coach will expect of the players, I think we would all probably agree to most of these things. It's mostly just common sense and respect for one another. But I'm gonna briefly go down and hit just a few of these. As coaches, you know, we're going to do our best to start and stop things on time. We respect the fact that we're all leading very busy lives. I'm sure if we ran around the room, everyone would agree that you have overcommitted and are involved in way too many things. And I'm the chiefest of sinners when it comes to that. So we will do our best to try to respect that. Certainly, if there's a need or a desire for extra gym time, shooting, whatever, as coaches, we'll always try to help the kids in that way. But we will try to start, stop on time, and we'll try to be prepared so that when we're there, if it's 90 minutes, 2 hours, whatever it is, that we'll try to make sure that we make the most of the time while we're there. You know, the other thing that I feel strongly that all 4 of us as coaches have in common is that we hold ourselves to a very high standard. We hold each other, we hold ourselves accountable, and we will do the same for the kids. I'm not going to, you know, I don't, you know, when it's time to work, it's time to work, and I'm not much of a nonsense kind of fellow. So when we're practicing, it's time to practice. What are you laughing at, Chili? And I feel like these other coaches are the same. So if there's something that needs to be corrected, you know, I correct it, and I feel like I'm speaking. I know I'm speaking for the other coaches as well. That we will hold your player, your athlete accountable, but we do it. We will make sure that they understand what the lesson is they need to learn, what the thing is they need to correct. We're always going to make sure that we promote good sportsmanship. You know, I'm not about blaming anybody for anything. You know, when things don't, and I will tell you, there'll be some places that we'll go that, you know, you can put a paper bag over your head and referee just as good as the guys that are out there. But then there'll be some places we go where they'll actually be pretty good. What I always try to focus on with the kids is focus on ourselves. Let's be the best us we can be, regardless of what the climate and circumstances are around us. And I will never, if I hear a kid, I will be quick and sharp to correct them. I will not let a player make excuses. Okay? If we get beat, we just get beat, but we're gonna sit down, we're gonna talk about how can we learn from that. If we win, hey, great, let's celebrate, but then let's talk about, okay, why did we win? What was the formula that we used to help us to have this success, and where are areas that we can improve on, strive to do better the next time? I have a motto: we play through the windshield. Okay, we don't look in the rearview mirror. It's all about windshield. Because if we spend all our time focused on the mistakes that we make, well, then we're never going to get any better. and you know, feeling sorry for ourselves and making excuses. Oh, well, that referee didn't do this or didn't do that. So we will hold the kids accountable, and that's the attitude that we'll take into this with the kids. Our expectation of the players is just take it serious when you show up for practice, that you're there to work. You're there to get better. And if you're not, if you're there just to goof off and waste a little time while your mom or dad or somebody goes shopping, then this is not the right place for you. Because as I've said, this is an investment in both time and money. And it's not something that should be taken lightly. So if we're going to do it, let's do it to the best of our ability and get all out of it we can. Schoolwork comes first. I want to make sure that is emphasized. I ask all of our players, how's your grades? How's school? And then I always make a point. I will ask the parents, how's the grades? Because schoolwork's got to come first. Because if you're at every practice, you're at every game, and you're playing your tail off, and you're just giving it everything you got, but you're failing in the classroom, then it's all for naught. Because if you don't have good grades and you're not doing what you need to do in the classroom, then you're never going to see the court. Okay, and all of you guys now are in middle school or getting ready to be in middle school, and with school ball, of course, they have the grade requirements and things, and I look at it the same way, because school's got to come first. All right, so just make sure that is emphasized there. Practice, I understand that everybody's, there's many of us live in different communities. As coaches, we will do our best to try to schedule a practice time and a location that is as convenient as it can be for everyone. But practice is important, and we struggled with that a little bit this year, this past season. And I just want to make sure that when we talk about commitment, we're not just talking about showing up in Dearborn, Michigan by 8:30 on a Friday night. We're talking about being in Monticello or Richmond or Berea or Somerset or wherever the practice is scheduled on a Tuesday night or a Thursday night or a Monday night, whatever the case may be. Because practice is important, so please understand that when we talk about commitment, we're talking about practice as well. We don't want to be constructive in everything we do, not destructive, and that includes not just player to coach, but also parent to player, parent to coach. So we want to make sure that we keep the right attitude, the right perspective in all of this, because at the end of the day, they're 12, 13 years old, 11 years old, and we're all learning, and nobody's perfect. And I ask the kids that a lot. I said, are you perfect? And of course, they all say no. And I say, well, then stop holding yourself to a standard that makes me believe you think you're perfect. Because when we strive, if every mistake I make, I'm constantly throwing a fit or it's messing me up in my head, then I'm going to really struggle to ever kind of find my groove and find my way, because I'm holding myself to a standard that I cannot attain. So it's important, that it will be something that we'll emphasize about trying to make sure we always play through that windshield, learn from our mistakes, but we won't dwell on them. Communication. It's important to communicate with one another. If you're going to miss practice, for some reason you're going to have to miss a game or part of a weekend, make sure you let the coach know that plenty of advance. Our expectations as parents, again, commitment about transportation, communication, being respectful of coach's time and their effort to get everything scheduled and done. Make sure that you're on time as best as possible. Certainly we understand things happen, bad traffic happens, you get held up at work, whatever the case may be. That was not a pun, by the way, since we're in a bank, about getting held up at work. But, this is another important point I want to emphasize. When you're at a game, make sure you're cheering for all the kids, not just your kid. I have witnessed firsthand where a parent said, and there were two things that they uttered. One was, "Way to go, son." The other was leaning to their spouse saying, "Look at that kid out there. He should be passing the ball to little Johnny. What's he thinking?" And that's all. And that was their attitude about the entire event. It was just, build their kid up, tear all the rest of the kids on the team down, to try to make their kid look better. And that's not what any of us are looking to be a part of. So when you're there, whether it be at practice, games, cheer for all the kids. And another thing is, let the coaches coach, and you guys be supporters, cheerleaders. It's very confusing, and I've witnessed this as well. I've experienced it a couple times and had to address it. But when we're telling the kids one thing, and then they're walking away from a huddle, looking in the stands for dad or mom to see what they tell them, and it's conflicting to what we're telling them, that's a problem. And one of the things that I'm learning with my 3 sons is that they need to know what it feels like to make decisions on their own, to get counsel from somebody other than dad or mom, and learn what it feels like to make a mistake doing that, and how they learn from it, how they pick themselves up. So it's all a process of growing older and getting more mature. So what I would say is that an expectation from coach to parent is that you all will be the number one cheerleader, the number one supporter, but you'll let the coaches do the coaching. And then the other thing I would say is that if there's ever a question about something that we're doing as a coach that you disagree with, or that you just want some clarity on, or it's something that maybe has got your blood pressure up a little bit, and you're a little bit anxious about or upset over, try your best to adhere to the 24-hour rule, okay? Let 24 hours pass, sleep on it, think about it, and then in as professional and respectful a way as possible, then reach out to the coach, whether it's through a phone call, a text, because all too often, and I'm guilty of this as anybody, and maybe some of y'all had similar experiences. You, in the heat of a moment, the passion of a moment, you say something, you do something that you end up regretting 24 hours later. Where if you had just walked away, stewed on it a little bit, slept on it, dwelled on it, thought about it, talked it out with your spouse or someone else, in your inner circle, you may have gotten some perspective that was a little different, that helped you process it in a way that then you were able to communicate in a healthy, professional way. So that's something that we will expect from you all as parents. And at the same time, if there's an issue with the player, with your child, we will come and talk to you about it and make sure that we have adult conversation about these things, and not just let it linger and fester. That's kind of the highlights of this page, of this sheet. Any coaches, y'all want to add anything about in this bucket, this area, as far as expectations, code of conduct? Officials, I have, knock on wood, fake wood, I shouldn't say this because I'm part of the team. I've never been thrown out of a game before as a coach.
I just told him that this weekend. Not yet. Roy has. So he's a bad example for me. But I haven't, and not because I didn't feel like it, or feel like I had plenty of reason to, express my dissatisfaction. But I try very hard to stay focused on the kids, and I know Chris does, I know Travis does, and I know Roy does. Not let the guy that appears to be very disinterested in doing a good job officiating, get in the way of me teaching kids. And that's sometimes very difficult to do, but that's where you just kind of got to bite your tongue, or stomp on your toe or something. Go smash your hand in the door, something to forget about it. So, and I would ask the same of the players, ask the same of parents, is let's always, whenever we're at a place together, let's always try to act as professional and mature as we can, and rise above those types of things. Because what I will tell you is, as I said earlier, when you get in a place where there's all of these different cultures and backgrounds and raisins coming together in one spot,
not everybody acts that way. And they will try to bait you into not acting that way, or into acting that way, the bad way, and you know, none of us are above doing that, so we just have to make sure we're on guard for that and mindful of it. All right. Let's move then to the last page, the team, team information sheet here on the back. And let me say before I get too deep into this, everything on this page, I feel reasonably good about the accuracy of this information, but at the same time, what I would tell you is I think some of this could change slightly, and I'll kind of highlight the places where I think it maybe could change. But right now, we're looking at a cost of about $700 per player, and that list of things there is what all that would cover. At the Midwest Circuit entry fee, that's, as I said, roughly 4 weekends, approximately 16 to 20 games, 4 other tournaments, and some we know, some we don't. Approximately another 16 games there. So in all, we're looking at, just with this schedule, around 30 to 40 games, somewhere in that range. This would pay for team insurance. This would pay for, at this point, I think we can get 2 reversible, 2 sets of uniforms, reversible uniforms. Right now, I'm talking with an Under Armour rep, looking at a deal right now that they put together for us. We will look at some other stuff, but I've got a pretty good deal package that we're working on right now that I think would be nice. Long sleeve shooting shirt, short sleeve shooting shirt, long sleeve quarter zip, a backpack that would be embroidered with Southern Texas Select, player's name and jersey number. And then also I included in this shoes. We may or may not do like team shoes. What we may do is identify just basic colors or maybe even styles, and try to have similar looking shoes, and then just let everybody kind of go get their own, because footwear is one thing that everybody's pretty particular about. I mean, I know I'm particular about it. And I know, kids are too. So, you got a couple of
The whole team shoe happy.
Yeah, shoe happy. So if that's the case, then the fee would actually go down a little bit, and we will know that, and I'll get to that in a second, but we'll know that before the final balance of the money is due. And then the tentative tournament schedule, most of these dates are pretty fixed. The KBC dates are fixed. The Midwest dates, I'm told, are finalized. The to be determined weekends, that will be somewhere within a 2 to 3 hour drive of Central Kentucky. Bowling Green, Nashville, Knoxville, Cincinnati, as some examples. Huntington has some tournaments that I've looked at in that area. So could be in Ashland, that tri-state area up in there. There's a couple of tournaments in that time frame. So it'll be something 2 to 3 hours of Central Kentucky. One of the examples I put down there on that May 16th date is in Gatlinburg. Big Shots puts tournaments on down there at Rocky Top, or a weekend down there. And Big Shots is something that last year was my first experience. Roy had some experience with that group in the past, and they do a good job putting tournaments on. And we actually went down and played in their tournament in Gatlinburg this past year, and it was pretty good. So that's an example of something we might do. Is, that weekend, I just put that on there as something, just as an example. And then that last weekend in May there, that Adidas Junior Gauntlet. The Adidas Gauntlet is one of the major circuits, AAU circuits, in addition to EYBL and the Under Armour circuit. The Junior Gauntlet, you do not have to be affiliated with Adidas to play in it. It's open. And Cincinnati has a Junior Gauntlet weekend. And I have not totally confirmed that is the weekend, but that is the weekend it was last year. And I'm still waiting to get an email response back from the guy that runs the Cincinnati event. So that would be from my research and talking to a couple people, that would be a highly competitive event, I believe. And so one of the things I would say about the schedule is that as we get into it, if we're struggling to compete with some of the level of competition that we've put in it, there's nothing that says as we go through it, especially like with an event like that we couldn't, downgrade that event. Instead of going to the Adidas Junior Gauntlet, we might go to some other tournament that maybe we felt like we might be able to compete a little better at. Because what we don't want to do, we want to compete at the highest level that we possibly can, because that's the only way these kids get better. And I certainly, if we go, if you play all season and you go undefeated, then you didn't play tough enough schedule. Okay. We were 19-8, 19-9. Played some really good teams. I think I can only really remember one game where I felt like we just weren't in it. The rest of the time, we were always right there in it. And in fact, a lot of our losses, we had a chance to win in the last 5 minutes. But it was good competition. Lost one on sudden death. So what I would just say about the schedule is that as we get through it, and that's something that as coaches, again, talking about autonomy, it may be that we're fine. Roy and I feel good about going to the Institute Gauntlet, but Travis doesn't. And so Travis said, hey, we're not going to go up there. We're going to go play somewhere else. And that's fine. There's nothing that says, that we have. The biggest thing is the circuit. The circuit and probably the 2 coast-to-coast tournaments in Lexington. If we can all play those and those together, I think that would be great. But past that, if we want to go separate directions, it's fine. It's not that big a deal. But if not, then we can all go together. We'll just play that by ear and see how it goes. But the thing that will require the greatest commitment early is the Midwest circuit. As I said earlier, and that gets us down into this timeline. So when we talk about kind of the preseason timeline, and I'm talking about from now until February when we would start. By September the 15th, what we're looking for is to get a $150 deposit. Now, what that will be used for is to pay for the entry fee for the Midwest Circuit in order to take advantage of the discount and to get in before that deadline of 12/31. Now, September 15th and 12/31 are fair distance apart, but we've also got to order uniforms at some point in there, which is, if you go on down, in November prior to Thanksgiving, our intent, hope is to have a uniform fitting where we'll have samples of all the stuff that I said earlier, and we'll probably just try to do it right here if everybody feels like this is a reasonably central location, and get all of that sized and fitted, and then try to have it ordered sometime there in mid to late November, and then have it in our hands by mid to late January. That's the hope. The thing we have to always remember about ordering this stuff, and this kind of hung us last year, is you lose about 4 weeks from the week before Thanksgiving to the end of the year, because you got Thanksgiving, and then you got really the whole week of Thanksgiving, and about 3 weeks, and then the 2 weeks, the week before and the week after Christmas. So you lose about 3 weeks there of stuff just doesn't get done. So we got to make sure, it's really important. We want to start as early as what we're suggesting here in February. If we want to have uniforms, we need to make sure that we get them sized and ordered in November. So that said, then we would ask for the balance of the team fee when we would do the uniform sizing, which would be in November, and then practice and games would start sometime in January, February. And again, when you all would start practicing, and some of you may want to try to get together on Sunday afternoon or something before then, and that's totally up to each team. But I know that middle school basketball will be over about the third week of February, right around the time that this first tournament there in Lexington is on February the 15th. So, and the other thing, what we will try to do with is we'll have an online team store that we'll try to have built and have available prior to Christmas, sometime in that early December range, and have it run for about 30 or 40 days. Give everybody an opportunity to buy some stuff if they want as a family, shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, whatever. So that's a whole lot of information. What questions does someone have?
I was gonna say something about the money. We played, gosh, several of the coast-to-coast tournaments this past year. So we were playing a lot more of a bigger schedule than just local stuff. And most of those tournaments were, what, 275, 350? And I did quick math today. The $700 sounds like it's a lot, and it is, like I say, it's, and I think it needs to be to get that commitment from you as well, where you feel like you're invested. But we were really close to $700 last year. By the time you did $42 this weekend for tournament entry fee, and $125 for uniforms, and $15 for shooting shirts, we were really close to $700 last year. So I don't want that number to scare you. I don't know if it will scare anybody, but don't let money be an issue. If there's anybody who wants to talk to me about money, come and talk to me. But I think $700 is actually really good. We didn't get near the stuff that you've got here compiled on this list either with $700. So.
Yeah, I mean, if we're able to pull it off, I think that'll be a pretty good value with everything that we're getting. And I think we can. I mean, pencil's pretty sharp. I've tore the eraser off, so I think we can make it work. But what questions do you have about just the travel and I mean, because a lot of times that's the thing that intimidates. I mean, that's what intimidated me the most is just. But actually, what I learned is getting a hotel room. Because that was what kind of I was like, oh my gosh, we gotta get a hotel room, and we all need to stay at the same place. Because it is very, very helpful. What I'll tell you is that if you're thinking, well, I'll shop around and I'll try to find it is very, very helpful for everybody to stay at the same hotel. Okay? I'll tell you why. Because if you don't, then what ends up happening is I know Mr. Socialite back here, he likes to have a lot of team get-togethers, right? Guys, he likes to do cannonballs on the side of the pool, and, all that good stuff. Somebody misses out on that, and that deflates the experience. That's because that's part of the experience. I mean, I know you guys all love to play basketball, but I'm gonna bet you that if we can fast forward when you guys are 18 and you're getting or 19 and you're getting ready to graduate and you're sitting around telling stories you're gonna be telling are probably of him jumping off the side of the pool, doing cannonball, yelling cowabunga or something like that. It's not gonna be, hey, you remember that quick guard we were playing up in Dearborn, Michigan, man? You remember him? He was number 14, and man, he was fast. He could really go left. That's not what you're gonna be remembering. So, what I would say is that staying at the same place has value beyond just the price of the room. And then the other thing it does is, having team communication. Roy and I, I remember that first weekend, we got our kids together probably 2 or 3 times to talk about the previous games. And it was very helpful to say, hey, meet in the lobby at 2:30, and then we'll head on over to the gym from there. So what I would say about that is that, the travel part of it is intimidating, it can be, and it's a little bit daunting to think you're going to drive 8 hours and spend, 3 days in a hotel or 2.5 days in a hotel, and, in some other city, but it's not as big a deal as what I thought it was. And it's actually, these tournaments and these circuits, they do a good job of partnering with the hotels, so they make it actually pretty easy. What other questions, Roy? What on the leave now? What else we need to hit on?
Not a whole lot that I know of. You touched basically on most of everything, except for maybe the parents standing down the sideline.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of skirting around that, but and some of you have maybe dealt with that, and maybe all of you have dealt with it. But we had parents of players on other teams that, and for whatever reason, a lot of these places will allow it. I mean, they're standing 3 and 4 feet out on the floor. I remember one particular time Walker was shooting 3, and I think the parent's towel actually flipped him in the butt as he was going up for a shot, as he was, trying to, get him miss. But
Did he make it?
well, I don't remember which if it was that particular time, but there was one particular time that he had a parent heckling him behind him, saying he was in, freshman in high school or something. He hit it, and he turned around and goes, Cox is 3 gun, and he runs down. But you know, that stuff's there, and that's what I'm talking about. There's parents that act really crazy about this stuff, and a lot of times I'm not even sure they're parents. I think they're actually paid to be there to just try to calm them. So that is something that's a little different, and you know, and sometimes that can be pretty intimidating for kids. I mean, shucks, it's intimidating for me sometimes, but anyway, that's a little different. So, what other questions about competition? I will say this. As far as the play goes, and I've talked to Travis and Chris both about this, you got to be able to handle the basketball. You hear me, guys? You got to be able to handle the basketball. Because I am telling you, pressure is from inline to inline. Okay, and it not every game. Some games, you know, the teams will be stinkers and they're not all that great. But a lot of teams you play will pressure you, and I mean and they allow a lot of hand checking, a lot of grabbing of jerseys, right, Walker? You know, push on the hip as you're going by is okay a lot of times. So that's stuff you got to learn to play through, and you know, you got to be strong with the basketball, and you can't let them rattle you, because I'm telling you, if they smell blood and water, it's over. I mean, they just fuels the fire. So, any question about the money, about what you're getting for the money, about that? As far as the down payment, $150 down payment goes, I would just, if you know, that is again team specific. So, you know, I don't want everybody calling me and say, hey, I need to get you some money. You know, I'll take care of Roy, and I'll take care of our team. Chris will take care of his team. Travis will take care of his team, and then we'll pull it together to be able to submit the money for the circuit, for the uniform, etc.
Hey, Coach Corey, on the
Yes, sir.
games, and I just want to clarify,
Yes, sir.
you're guaranteed 4 games.
Right. So these sessions in this circuit,
4 games.
and I'm only talking about the circuit. I'm not talking anything else. The circuit. So the first one on here is Indianapolis, right?
Yeah.
First. So you'll go to Indianapolis, and you will be scheduled 4 games. Now, it may be 1 Friday night, 2 Saturday, 1 Sunday. It may be 3 Saturday, 1 Sunday. It may be 2 Friday night, 1 Saturday, 1 Sunday. It may be 1 Friday, 1 Saturday, 2 Sunday.
You don't know.
You just don't know.
Could be 4 on Saturday.
Yeah, we got a schedule. What city was that?
The second stop, Indianapolis.
Yeah, Indianapolis. Our schedule changed 4 times.
Yeah.
3 or 4 times. Y'all, you remember that? Y'all remember that? 3 or 4 times it changed before our first game in about a 72-hour period.
The Midwest is a lot better on their schedule. They release it really early, and you should have it all for all 4 stops.
Yeah, in a previous life, Roy actually coached in the Midwest circuit. So he's got experience in both. So.
Now, when you play these 4 circuit games, 4 tournaments,
Yep.
Where's the national tournament?
Well, it'll end up back in Indianapolis. So the way they've got it is you're going to be in Indianapolis. It's bookend by Indianapolis. You start in Indianapolis, you end in Indianapolis.
That's the national director.
Well, it's
Before
not, the final, it's not national, it's just finals of that circuit.
And that's it for that.
Yep,
That is the 4th week.
that is
Now,
the
is
4th.
that a win-lose outcome?
Yeah.
Well, you'll still get the pool
You'll
play
get the pool
game,
play.
and then you'll go into the tournament, and it's 1 and done.
Okay.
Yeah. 1 and done. And just as an example, so the NYBL finals were well, it wasn't in Atlanta, but it was just north of Atlanta. What was the name of the town?
Emerson?
Is that right? Emerson, somewhere.
Was it like?
It was just north of Atlanta. So we played. We had to play on Friday night, and we played Team T, which is, if you know who Jeff Teague is, plays in the NBA. I guess he still plays. He's got a program in Indianapolis, and we played their team on Friday night. We played them 2 or 3 times, and it always gotten really close, but we just couldn't quite beat them. And we beat them on that Friday night by what, 13 points. Okay. So man, we were feeling pretty good. And then we go 2-0, 3-0. Who did we play that next time?
We played Tri-City Ballers that morning, and they beat us.
Okay, we got beat by Tri-City Ballers on Saturday morning.
And then we beat NYBL.
Then we beat the team from Nashville, NYBL. And then we turned around and played CP3 on Sunday morning.
Yes.
Played CP3 on Sunday morning, which is Chris Paul's team out of North Carolina. And had them beat. I mean, we should have beaten them. And they ended up beating us by 5 points. Well, long story short, CP3 and Team T ended up being the finals. Team T beat CP3 by 1 point. So all I'm saying is that we were right there in the thick of it. We were right there in the mix. And I believe that all three of these teams can be very competitive. So I wouldn't be intimidated by that as long as you're willing to be committed to being competitive. You cannot let a bad game, a bad play, a bad whatever cause you to hunker down into your shell and get timid and shy all of a sudden. You gotta be guns out the whole time. You ready? Great. I should have told you all that. I'm a very good host now. Here, go to your right. First door on your right. So, what other questions? Questions? Any questions? Questions? Anybody? One thing I did not mention this is communication. We have a public Facebook page, and then I think each team has y'all have a private Facebook page. Each team has a private Facebook page just for the group. We may need to, the coaches will talk about if we need to modify that any. Maybe we need to make a private Facebook page that includes all three teams for information that's relevant. I don't know. We can talk about that. But anyway, that's how I like to communicate, and I know Chris and Travis do as well. So it seems to have worked well at this point. So we'll probably continue to do that. I will say this too. I know that at least I'll speak for our team. We've got a couple of as far as the rosters go. That's something that again we've got to get nailed down pretty quickly because. As I said, we've got to have commitments. So if you're committed to doing this or want to do this, then you're going to have to decide, sooner rather than later if you're going to commit and make sure that you communicate with the coach. And if there's I guess any change of heart or change of mind after the fact. That's just something we'll just have to cross that bridge when we get there, depending on how far down the road we are with paying for things and so forth. I'm not going to necessarily commit to anybody that if you change your mind, you get any of your money back because some of it may not be able to be gotten back. Because there's nothing built into this that's any kind of buffer, if you will. No, you get paid what you got paid last time. So all I'm saying is that we're paying. I'm paying $700 just like Roy is, just like Chris is, just like Travis is. So now what I will say is as far as fundraisers or sponsors, again, team of time. If Travis and his parents want to go try to get 2 or 3 sponsors, great. Chris and Roy and I, but we'll do it each kind of as a team. Now if it's somebody that's bigger, that maybe it would be make sense for us to pull together and do it as a program, then we can talk about that. Certainly that's something we can consider. Kentucky State Police, we might go to them and say, hey, give us $10,000.
That's not much love. We need to ask you about the money.
Yeah, well, hey, listen, you can pull people over at will.
Yes.
I mean, you just.
I'll be in prison, yeah.
Hey, there's a lot of people from Ohio coming down the interstate. A lot of money in their pockets. So look, here's the deal. I'm going to write you a ticket, or option 2, a $200 donation to Southern Kentucky State. What's it going to
To Chris Reeser.
Yeah.
Tax deductible for them. I'll get
Hey, John has a question right here.
Yes, sir.
For us, we're full, but the 5th and 6th have open tryouts.
Don't know.
We're full.
We do have a couple spots. We had 2 kids from Owensboro that played with us last year that will not be playing with us this next year. And that's not because the kids, it's just logistics, and here's the other thing about, my goal in all this is to try to create a group of kids, or put together a group of kids in the 2026 class, and I think Chris is the same, and Travis is the same, that, I'm not saying that they're all going to be from the same community, the same neighborhood, But if they can all be from the same, at least 2 area codes, you know. When you start getting, you know, Lexington to Owensboro or London to Owensboro, that's getting a little bit spread out. And it makes it difficult about practices, just logistics in general. Communication's tough. So we're looking for kids that are talented, have committed parents that are in this south central Kentucky area, the I-75 kind of corridor. So to answer your question, I don't know. We'll just have to see. We've got,
I don't think so, sorry. I don't think so now, but we'll see. But
Yeah.
I think right now
and I would probably say the same thing.
We do need one good ball.
Yeah. Yeah, we need
If you got a 6 footer that can handle the ball, bring him on.
I will say this, and I mentioned this a second ago. You gotta have strong ball, and I can't say this enough, you gotta have strong ball handling. Got to. If you don't, it's gonna be frustrating for the kids, probably discouraging for the parents, because you're gonna see the frustration on the kid's face, and you'll be like, oh, wish I could do it before him, help him somehow. So you need to have those 1, 2, 3 kids that don't get rattled, stay composed, and strong with basketball. It's a quick recipe for a bad day. Can't do that. What other questions?
I would ask that you all that have done it before, maybe speak to some of the people that may be on the fence. Your impression of it, great experience previously, okay experience.
He touched on it earlier to me. Like you said, we've played Team T 2 or 3 times and it's been close. And then when we met them at the end of the year, because we played them early with Select.
Played them in Indy.
But
We played in Lexington.
We played in Lexington.
And then we
And
played
they beat us
them
by
I remember
11.
that, yeah.
They beat us by 11. When we met them in the finals, we beat them by 13. We handled them pretty easy. So, I mean, there was a big improvement from our kids that I saw.
Yeah. I mean, at this age, really, I mean, and another thing, don't do yourself a favor and don't get hung up on all the Instagram stuff, you know, the highlight videos and all that stuff, guys, because I promise you, John Calipari, Kenny Payne, and those guys at UK are not going to care about a middle schooler's Instagram highlight video, okay?
And at every stop, there is some TV place there that is wanting to give them $150 for a highlight video.
Yep.
So,
So just beware of that kind of stuff. And I will tell you, the thing is that well, there was a player on one of the teams that had, or maybe it was for the whole team, they hired their own videographer that was just following them everywhere they went. I mean, I don't know what they paid this person, but I mean, they had the full, it looked like, you know, a complete TV studio following them around. So there's that stuff out there. And that doesn't get you better. It doesn't get you better. Getting on the court and doing the repetitive things over and over and over and over so that it gets ingrained in the memories of your muscle. That's what gets you better. You know, so to answer your question, experience, yes. And I would say that because of the competition. Because it allowed our kids to see some things and some talent that they hadn't played against before. Because, you know, we've all played, you know, even in the teams you play, most teams have that 1 or 2 really good kids, really good players. But when you start playing against teams that have 6 and 7 really good players, your approach and the mental approach you got to have to compete against that changes. And that's what, you know, that's that inner competitor that you got to have to say, I'm gonna get after it, and I'm not gonna quit. I'm not gonna lay down. So yeah, I think it's a good experience overall. I mean, how about, we got 2 moms here that experienced it. What about from the mom perspective? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
It's a big commitment for time, especially if you have multiple children that are in multiple sports. So you have to pre-plan. Having this far ahead of time is a big help. You're gonna have to get grandparents on board, and you're gonna
we're more organized now than we were the whole time last year.
And it's a disease I have.
And I will say, do not play no tuna tournament either. Because we did that in Erlanger,
I heard you.
and then when we got down in Greensboro, the first game we were shell shocked a little bit.
Yeah, our closest game in the tune-up was like 42.
Yeah, and we got down there and then we got down 13 and ended up not being able to, we ended up getting beat by 13, so.
Yeah. Couldn't.
And it was just straight shell shock.
Yeah.
They're coming at you from everywhere.
We were pretty sure they were playing 7 kids. Now, of course, I asked a question about for the moms. Of course, you asked the little brother. He was giving the old thumbs down. A lot of time spent in bleachers for siblings.
You
You know,
didn't like all that pool time?
make sure your iPads are charged, your phones are charged.
Don't let him lie though, he was our biggest cheerleader.
Yeah.
He's right on the bench the whole time.
Yeah. One thing that's not been asked, but I just thought of it as far as money. If this is going to sound, maybe shady, and I don't mean for it to, but cash would be best. Pay with it. Well, I'm trying to avoid having to set something, but we're probably going to have to set something. Well, I mean something more formal, get a tax ID for a nonprofit
We
organization
still have ours?
or a club. But I mean, it's easy to do. I've got like 50 of them. But if you have to make a check, just make it to Southern Kentucky Select and put 2025, 2026, 2027 on it. And then in the meantime, I'll talk to these guys. We'll get something organized to manage and facilitate that part of it. What's that? Bitcoin? Yeah, I could do that. Could do that. Or I could just ask for your gold bullion that you got buried in your garden, third row corner. All right. Any other questions? Anything we're forgetting? Again, I know it's a lot of information. It's like getting a drink out of a fire hydrant, but.
Travis said he's driving the team bus. Right?
Yeah.
Well, you make a joke about that, but I know a guy. I know a guy.
Very nice of us.
And that's not a completely crazy off the wall notion, because if we're all going the same place and the schedule's worked out, we might actually, but now the problem is we get there and then we all gotta go, Corbin wants to go to Chick-fil-A and we all want to go to Wendy's. We got problems.
So there is a lot of people driving too much.
Yeah. Now,
Powerhouse Bulls.
Powerhouse Bulls, that's it. And they ended up, here's an example. We played a team early on called Powerhouse Bulls, and unfortunately we didn't get to play them again. I wish we would have. We played them early in Greensboro. They ended up being ranked according to
But we beat them.
the rankings.
We beat them.
That's right, we beat them. I'm thinking of, what's the other one? Bull City, or, what's the city?
Tri-City Ballers?
Yeah, we didn't beat them.
No, we did not beat them. They had that
But
16.
Powerhouse Bulls, they ended up in our 2026 class in the rankings being like the number 11th or 12th team in the nation supposedly. But we beat them. But they had their own team bus, or like conversion van or whatever. I don't know what you call it, but it was big. And there was like 75 people rolled out there.
They even have a ramp on it at the end.
Did they?
So there's some serious people out there doing things way beyond, some crazy dude printing up an agenda for stuff 7 months away, 6 months. I guess in the meantime, if you have any questions, think something, just let your coach know, and then if they can't answer it, they can get it to me, and if I can't answer it, I'll make something up. Fake it till you make it, right? I guess, Travis, anything else?
I think you need to talk about it, just real quick. If they do play with us, they play with nobody else.
That's a good point. I'm glad you remembered that, because I did not include that in that sheet. But so this issue has come up in the past, and I think that again, back to being committed to the team, to each other, and being committed to your teammates and the families of your teammates. If you commit to do this, because it is such a big financial and time commitment, and everybody is working their schedules around to make this happen, that this team's gotta come first. Now, if there's a weekend or some through the week and we're doing nothing and it doesn't conflict with this, that way, second one, you're out. You know, if it's play with your, do something with your local team, you know, just a local, you know, throw together travel, then that's fine. But if there's ever conflicts, this has gotta come first. I just think we've all got to, when we make the commitment and we hand over the cash order, write the check, case may be, I think as part of that commitment, we're committing to this program, we're committing to this team. And, because here's the other thing that happens a lot, and your question kind of spurred this thought, and we've experienced this. So let's say that, you know, Corbin has a great game, scores 30 points and just all over the court, and everybody's excited. Well, you know, they're asking, well, where's Corbin go? Where's Corbin? Next thing you know, he's standing over here and coach from some other team's got the corner. Saying, hey man, you need to come play with us, man. You know, you'd be a lot happier, man. And that stuff happens. It's crazy, but it happens. Again, especially when you get out away from Kentucky. It happens. So, I think that if we say we're going to be committed to this team, we got to be committed to this team because everybody's dependent. At that point, the other families on that team are depending on you to carry your weight. So,
I would say the schedule being what it is, starting in February, what I told our kids, because we typically play in the fall and the winter time, and then we ended in February. So this year in the fall and the winter time, play your middle school basketball, play your local travel team, all you want.
yeah.
And then once we start this, like you said, the weekends that we've got stuff, play with us.
Yeah.
Weekend you don't, I could care less. I mean, it's your life. Go play with whoever you want to. But the weekends that we play, yes.
But if there's conflicts, this needs to be always have priority.
Well, on that Midwest circuit, once you turn your roster in, you
Yeah.
can't add anybody.
That's a good point. Yeah,
So-
yeah, and
So if you have 2 kids quit, you're down.
yeah, that's a good point. So that's the other thing, that you cannot add anybody, and let's say for example, Corbin had that great game, and he decided, you guys decided, hey, you know, yeah, Chris is, you know, we want to get away from that guy, well, they would not let him play for anybody in that circle.
No.
So once you're on a roster, once you play that first game, that first weekend, you can't play with anybody else. And another thing is that if you are a no-show, this is another Midwest Circuit rule. If you are a no-show, there was a team or two here and there that was no-shows. They plainly state they have the right to remove you from the circuit, and you lose all your money. So that's the other thing about being committed. You know, getting there, and you know, and some of this, you know, there could be bad weather, there could be issues that come up that slow us down, but if we're going to be committed, we got to be committed. And I think to Travis's question, I agree with Chris. I think as long as there's no conflict with Southern Texas Select, SKS, then sure, knock yourself out. But if there's conflict, this has got to come first. Now, let's talk about middle school baseball. That made me think of something else. Middle school baseball is going to be going on at the same time. I know there may be 1 or 2 that play middle school baseball. The other reason for doing this as early as we are is that there is an opportunity for you to share this schedule with your middle school baseball coach. Those schedules are not completed yet. Okay? And I would presume, and I may be too bold of a presumption on my part, that if you went to that middle school baseball coach and said, hey, Junior is going to be playing basketball on this travel team, this AAU team, but he also wants to play middle school baseball, can you please avoid these weekends? I would presume that most coaches would probably, especially this far in advance.
I actually sent ours off today because we're still working on our schedule. So middle school baseball typically doesn't play on the weekends, except for like they may do a fundraising tournament or they may play something. So yes, give it to them early. I'll guarantee they can work with you. I'm working on Fairstown, Corbin, Riley, working on Fairstown.
So that's something else to consider as well. I don't know, how many of y'all play baseball? And, or think you're gonna play middle school baseball? Anybody? Anybody? One or two or three? Okay. So it may not affect many, but it may affect one or two. So it's just something to be mindful of. So that's the other reason, you know, try to have a schedule. And as I said, I'm pretty sure that most of what we've talked about will be the way it is, but there is a chance that some of it could be slightly altered. But for the most part, I think this is the way it'll be. So. What other questions? Anything else? Anything else need to be brought up? What about from the players? You guys got any questions? Questions, Chili?
Who's our mascot?
Who's our mascot?
Alvin.
There you go. I'm not sure what he is.
Does he ever take that mask
He's
off?
state of Kentucky.
Yeah. What?
He's the state of Kentucky. He walks around over Kentucky. He says, "Go Kentucky."
Yeah. Stay. Boys, y'all got any questions? Questions?
If you don't have one.
Okay. As far as the uniforms themselves, don't have those designed yet, but our colors typically are royal blue, black, white, silver, some combination of those colors. And that's something we'll have to figure out over the next few weeks, but I know a guy who's working on it. What else we got?
It won't matter what brand of shoes they wear tonight, you use.
No, the one thing, I stopped short of saying this earlier. One thing could be, so long term, one thing I've had on my mind is that if we buy from a particular brand, as an example now, even though they may not give us any kind of sponsorship now, if we can show a track record 2 or 3 years from now that we've been committed to them, and then we go make a pitch to them and say, hey, we'd like to be playing your circuit, we'd like to be a Under Armour team, a decent, whatever it is, and we can show that could have a little bit of sway, I don't know. So the only exception to your question would be is if we needed to buy the shoe of whatever type of uniform we get in order to make the package work. But I don't think that's going to be the case, but I wanted to have that in the list just in case. I don't think, but yes, if that's not long, that stipulation isn't needed, then yeah, we can wear whatever shoe we want to wear. But, you know, we'll want to, you know, but that can't be team specific. You know, if you don't want anybody wearing pink shoes, you say, hey, no pink shoes. But if you don't care what color they are, whatever. All right, anything else? Last call. All right. Thank you guys for coming. Grab a water if you like.